Welcome to Street TV. I'm Alex Alonso. I'm here with another Eric Holder update, Eric Holder trial update, and we're going to go back to day one. I haven't did a synopsis of day one, and that's when Cowboy Herman Douglas testified. And after opening statements, he was the first witness that the prosecution called. That was on Wednesday. And he started off by asking him, when did he meet Nipsey Hussle? He said he met him in 2003 after getting out from prison. They started doing music together. Then they showed exhibit number 2, which was a photo of the strip mall. He asked about what the stores in the strip mall. Cowboy said that the Master Burger and the tax location were separate businesses that paid rent, but all the other stores in the strip mall were ran by Nip. Then he said, what would he do on a regular day? And he said he would pull up, sit in the car for a little while, do social media, then get out, talk to fans, take photos. And then he asked, were his visits to the strip mall, to the Marathon store, were they publicly announced? Cowboy said no. He asked, was the March 31st, 2019 visit to the Marathon store announced? Cowboy said no, he didn't know he was coming. He came alone. And then Cowboy said that right when Nipsey Hussle was pulled up, was arriving at the Marathon store parking lot, he was receiving his lunch, which was being dropped off by Ingrid Caston, who actually ends up testifying a couple days later. So in the video that you see from the Shell's gas station, camera angle number 6, you'll notice that Cowboy is holding a bag in his hand the entire time. Well, that's the lunch that Miss Caston dropped off to him. So that means that she brought the lunch to Cowboy right about the same time Nipsey pulled up in the parking lot, which would have been probably about either 2:50 something, close to 3 o'clock in the afternoon on March 31st. And then he asked Cowboy what was he wearing. He said he remembered him wearing shirts and a do-rag on his head. Then Exhibit 4 was a picture of Eric Holder. The prosecutor asked, do you know who that is in the picture? Cowboy said yes. He called him Stupid Cuz. He said, that's Stupid Cuz right there. At some point, the prosecutor asked him to refer to the defendant as Eric Holder or Mr. Holder, or his name, to stop calling him Stupid Cuz. And then he asked, how did you know Eric Holder? He said that he watched them all grow up in the neighborhood. He said he raised them. And then he asked, did you see him that day? And he replied, yes. Then they played clips of the video footage from the Shell gas station, which was angle number 6. And that actual video is 32 minutes long, but they only played certain bits and pieces of it. But at some point in time, those whole 32 minutes will be available. And in the video clip, as soon as Nipsey Hussle arrives, he greets Rimpaw in the middle of the parking lot. So you'll notice that Nipsey Hussle is walking in a easterly direction towards Rimpaw, and they shake hands in the parking lot. And then Nip asked Rimpaw, and then at some point shortly thereafter, that's when Eric Holder arrives. He arrives in the white car with Bernice. Oh my gosh. Battery died. All right. Battery died in the mic, and we shall resume. Where did we leave off at? So that that Shell gas station camera is 32 minutes, and at some point that will be available for the public. So in the video clip, as soon as Nipsey Hussle arrives, he greets Rimpaw in the middle of the parking lot, and that's Evan McKenzie, McKenzie. And then a few moments later, a white car pulls up in the video clip. And at this point, Cowboy called him Stupid Cuz again. It's actually at this point when the prosecutor had asked him to refer to the defendant as either Eric Holder or Mr. Holder. Cowboy said that Nip had asked Rimpaw, is that shitty? And he asked, did you know Eric Holder before that day? Well, obviously, because he had just testified that he's seen them grow up in the neighborhood. So he says he pulled up in the car, he walked up and he shook all our hands, meaning Cowboy, Nipsey, and Evan McKenzie, aka Rimpaw. Did you leave and go inside? The prosecutor asked Cowboy, and he said no. And then he asked, what was Nipsey's demeanor like? And he said it was cool. He was just being Nip. Then the prosecutor asked, did Eric Holder walk up to the group? He said yes, he walked alone, normal walk up, normal handshake. Did he shake Nipsey Hussle's hand? Cowboy said yes. Then what happened next? Then Nipsey asked Eric Holder, where have you been? You've been gone for a while, maybe in jail. The conversation was between Eric Holder and Nipsey Hussle, Cowboy said. And then the prosecutor asked what was said. And he said that Nipsey said that he hadn't seen him for a while. Then he said, what's up, Hood? There's some paperwork on you and you need to fix it. Cowboy said that he was just ear hustling the conversation and he wasn't a part of it, and that they were talking about paperwork. When Nipsey Hussle said to Eric Holder, paperwork, you need to take care of it, Cowboy said yes. So then the prosecutor asked, so if there's a rumor that a Rolling 60s has paperwork, can that person rebut the rumor? And Cowboy said yes. Cowboy wanted to say that Nipsey Hussle was trying to give Eric Holder advice. So what did Eric Holder say in response to the allegation or to the rumor? And Cowboy said that Eric's response was that niggas just be hating on me. And then Eric kind of changed the conversation into asking them about his music. So he asked Cowboy, Nipsey, and Rimpaw, have you heard of my new CD? And then the prosecutor asked Cowboy, did he have a CD on him? And Cowboy said no. And then he asked, did anyone in that group clown him? And then Cowboy's response was that I wasn't paying attention, which I thought was kind of interesting because he's been giving us all these details about what was said previously. But when asked if anyone clowned Eric Holder regarding his music or his CD, he said he wasn't paying attention. And then prosecutor asked Cowboy, did you ever think that any danger was lurking? Cowboy said no. If you did think there was danger lurking, what would you have done? And Cowboy said he would have immediately escorted that guy out of here, that guy being Eric Holder. And then the prosecutor asked Cowboy about, do you remember a woman at that interaction? And Cowboy said yes, she walked up to take a photo, to take a selfie with Nipsey, and then she left and got into her car. Did you know that that girl was with Eric Holder? And Cowboy said no. And then the prosecutor asked Cowboy, how did this whole conversation end? From the snitch allegations to the paperwork, whatever was said, how did it end? And he said that after discussing his new CD, after asking the group did anyone listen to his music or know about his new music, when that was finished, he just walked off, got his food from Master Burger, shook hands and went to the car. And then the prosecutor showed a video clip, and it was of Eric Holder, and he asked, how was Eric Holder dressed? He said that he had a Tupac rag on with no shirt, wearing a rag Aunt Jemima style around his head or neck, tied in the front. And then Cowboy said that he went to Master Burger to get his food. He went to the group, he said goodbye, and then left. The prosecutor asked, was there any bad blood? He said none. What was Eric Holder's demeanor? Cowboy said it was normal. It was like a homie and homie conversation. Nip just said, take care of it. Regular conversation, according to Cowboy. After he left, we talked a little bit, according to Cowboy, meaning him and Nipsey and Rimpaw. But then he said, but I had food in my hand the entire time. And then I left when Eric Holder left. And when he left, he said he went inside the He went inside the Marathon store to eat his lunch when Eric Holder had left to the Master Burger. And then Exhibit 6, the prosecutor showed a picture of Kerry Latham. He asked Cowboy, do you know Kerry Latham? He said, yes, he's an older homie. And he said that Kerry Latham jumped out as soon as he was leaving. As soon as Cowboy was leaving into the Marathon store to eat his lunch, that's when Kerry Latham arrived. Then the prosecutor showed a picture of Shermai Villanueva, who's Kerry Latham's nephew. Cowboy said he doesn't recall seeing him. And then he went to the break room, and then he was asked who was left outside after he went into the break room. He said it was Nipsey and Rimpaw, still outside. And then he heard gunshots. How long was you inside the store, the Marathon store, eating your lunch when you heard gunshots? He said about 5 to 10 minutes. He said, the prosecutor asked him, what did you do? He said, I ran outside and I saw Nipsey Hussle on the ground. And he looked up and saw Eric Holder was running past the Master Burger. He said he saw him from the back running towards the alley past the Master Burger. And then Cowboy testified about seeing the injuries on Nipsey Hussle. He observed an injury at his right lower abdomen, and he observed another injury. He pointed right here in the shoulder neck area. And he also noticed some blood from the back of Nipsey's head, but he wasn't sure where the blood was coming from. The prosecutor asked Cowboy, did Nipsey say any words? And he said no. He kept trying to raise up. And that was the end of direct examination from John McKinney. Then on cross-examination, Deputy Public Defender Aaron Jansen asked him about, showed him a photo of him and Nipsey Hussle when Nipsey was really young. And in that photo, Cowboy said that Nipsey Hussle wasn't even from 60s at that time. Then he was asked, well, when did Nipsey Hussle get put on Rolling 60s? And Cowboy said in 2005 or 2006. So then the defense attorney asked about, let's talk about the paperwork. And he said that if there's paperwork, isn't that the same as saying snitch? Isn't that the same as snitching? The paperwork would mean you're telling or not telling. And he said that Nipsey Hussle just said, I heard there's paperwork. You better watch your back. You better take care of it. And then there was a couple of objections in there. And then a new question came from the defense attorney was, is saying that you better take care of paperwork calling Eric Holder a snitch? Cowboy said no. Nipsey Hussle never used the word snitch, according to Cowboy. When Nipsey Hussle said to Eric Holder that there is paperwork on you, is he calling him a snitch? He asked him a second time, and then Cowboy got a little defiant on the stand, basically avoiding the answer. And then that's when the defense attorney said, well, let's go to page 62 of the grand jury testimony where you testified about this back in 2019. And then there was an objection from the prosecution and basically objection, lack of foundation. But I believe they did read those lines 13 to 23 on page 62 of the grand jury transcript, which would have came out of volume number 1. And I'm going to read the whole page because on redirect, the prosecutor decides to start from line 1, but the defense wanted to focus on lines 13 through 23. But I'm going to start from line 1 and read that page 62. Question, tell us what happened as best you can, including the conversation, if any, that you heard between Nipsey Hussle after he approached the group. Answer from Cowboy. Well, I remember them shaking their hands. I remember them like, hey, man, what's up? You know, where you been, bro? Like that. And he like, I've been gone. I've been gone. I've been gone. I've been out the way or whatever. And then Nipsey was like, man, you know, they got some paperwork on you, you know. I haven't read it, you know, like you my bro, like, you know, you need to take care of that, you know. Then the question is, let me stop you there. And that's line 13, by the way. Let me stop you there, and I hate to interrupt you, but can you explain what paperwork means? Cowboy says, like he was in jail for snitching, or he had told on somebody or something. You know, like there's rumors going around that he had told on somebody. That he had told on somebody some particular stuff he may have told on. And Nipsey had told him that he hadn't read it. I haven't read any of the paperwork. I don't know, you know, but you need to address it. Or, you know, basically telling the guy, you need to be careful, you know, because people got some paperwork on you. Question, okay, let me stop you there. In gang culture, paperwork, is that a term that usually refers to police reports or court documents? And Cowboy says yes. So then the conversation with the defense attorney continued. At the grand jury, you said that he was in jail for snitching, a rumor around that he was snitching. Nipsey Hussle said, I didn't read the paperwork, and he said you need to be careful. So then the defense attorney asked Cowboy, if a person doesn't clear up snitching allegations, are there consequences? Cowboy said yes. Can a person get hurt or killed? Cowboy said, back in the day, yes, but today there are a lot of motherfucking snitching. In the grand jury transcript, you said snitching is not good to do. You can get beat up or killed. Did you say that? Cowboy said, yes. Even me getting on the stand right now would be considered snitching. Are there consequences for you? The defense attorney asked Cowboy, and he said, no, I ain't worried. But in the 1980s, yes. But this is 2022. Then the defense attorney continued to ask him about who did you work for, and he said he worked for Black Sam. And then back to more questions about Eric Holder. He said, so Eric Holder was not seen for a while. Cowboy said, yes. Was it years? He said, yes. He was in jail. I can't say how long, Cowboy said. And then he said, well, let's go to your grand jury transcript, page 58, lines 17 through 23. And then there was another objection from the prosecutor, lack of foundation. The judge says you may proceed. So I thought that was interesting. The prosecutor objected both times when the defense attorney wanted to refer to the grand jury transcripts. But I got page 58, lines 17 through 28 right here. And it says, question, and you testified that when the car went by Nipsey, you made some reference to him. Is that correct? Cowboy, yes. Question, tell us about that. Cowboy says, well, he made a reference to Rimpaw, just like he was inquiring. Is that shitty? Is that shitty? Because I think nobody hadn't seen him in some years. So then the defense attorney asked him about that. And that was pretty much the end of, nope. After he asked about that, he asked him, let's talk about your criminal history, Cowboy. And he brought up, I knew this was eventually going to come up. He asked him, do you have a sexual assault conviction and are you a registered sex offender? And Cowboy said, yes. And then he said, in 2020, do you have another felony case that you're currently on probation for? And he said, yes. So I thought that was interesting. Was completely unaware that he was on probation for another case. That's interesting because when a person is testifying and they're on probation, you always wonder, are the two related? So that was it for the defense attorney on cross-examination. And then John McKinney had a little bit more questions on redirect. He went back to page 62 of that grand jury transcript and said, let's read the entire page from line 1 to 28. He was suggesting that starting from line 13 may have been taken out of context. They read the whole thing. And then he said, and that was pretty much the end of day one. They ended the day at 3:35 p.m. and Cowboy was back on the stand for day two. And they were back in session at 9:37 a.m. And Deputy Public Defender Aaron Jansen had Cowboy on the stand to ask him some questions about the Instagram live video that he had done at some point during jury selection. And it was a video that was played in court of Cowboy pretty much going off on anyone who had anything to say about him, it was basically him defending his snitching in a 2-minute clip. And then the defense attorney asked him about, did Eric Holder come over and shake hands? And he said yes. And then he asked him about, did Nip say, I wonder how this is going to go down or play out? And this is an important part of the testimony, because this is a quote that he attributes to Nipsey Hussle that he had never provided during direct examination the previous day. Now remember, we're in day 2 of the testimony, and he had already been asked what was said when Eric Holder had first pulled up. And then they referred to an interview that I guess just aired on No Jumper. And the defense attorney asked him, do you get paid for these interviews? And he said yes. And then he continued to say, but my homeboy never called him a snitch. He said that even though there was no question pending. And then they went to another exhibit about the video. They were going to play the video, Exhibit C, and then the prosecutor objected, and they had a sidebar with the judge for about 20 minutes. So the prosecutor, the defense attorney, and the judge are having a powwow that no one could hear regarding this video that the defense attorney wants to play. So eventually, 20 minutes later, now it's 10:21, and they come back and he asks him about that statement that Nip said to himself. Nip said to self, I wonder how this is going to play out or unfold. The defense attorney asked, on direct, you were asked about what Nipsey Hussle said regarding Eric Holder when he pulled up in the car. He asked Rimpaw, is that shitty? Yes, the conversation between Rimpaw and Nip. But from the grand jury transcript, page 58, lines 14 to 26, you never stated that Nip said, I wonder how this is going to play out, and you never mentioned this under direct examination yesterday. But you said it in this No Jumper interview. And he said yes. And then they played the clip, I wonder how this is going to unfold, which is a comment that Cowboy said Nipsey said when Eric Holder pulled up in the parking lot. And then the defense attorney asked him, well, how much do you get paid for this, for the No Jumper interview? And Cowboy said he didn't get paid any. He said it was for free. And then he said that he did a Hip Hop Uncensored video interview that he got paid $1,000 for. And that was pretty much the end of re-cross examination. And then prosecutor had a few more questions, basically saying that, you give interviews, and when you give interviews, are you as honest as you can be? And he said yes. And he asked Cowboy, you didn't say the unfold comment on direct examen yesterday. How come you didn't tell us that yesterday, Cowboy? And his response was, because you asked about the car, which I thought that answer didn't really address the question. But the prosecutor didn't press it because it didn't really look good that he's introducing new information that Nipsey said that he had never told investigators before. He didn't say it in the grand jury, and he didn't say it during the trial on day one. So the prosecutor asked Cowboy, so why did you decide to make statements? Basically asking him, why did you decide to be a cooperating witness? And he said that I wanted to clarify the snitching comments. What's right is right, what's wrong is wrong. If this guy, Eric Holder, was from another gang, I wouldn't be here testifying, Cowboy said. whatever Eric Holder told, whatever he snitched on, he wasn't going to get death, only get beat up, Cowboy said. The videotape tells it all. There's nothing to tell. He killed Nipsey in cold blood for no reason. Killing Nipsey is worse than snitching. If you do a foul crime and you speak on it, that's not snitching, Cowboy said. If you call the police to help a little kid, that's not snitching. So the prosecutor asked him, so you're talking about defending foul crime? And Cowboy said, what I'm doing now is considered snitching. I might have to take a fade. Did Nipsey Hussle mention what the snitching was about regarding Eric Holder? Cowboy said there was no names mentioned, no case mentioned. What was the demeanor of the conversation? Was it cordial? Cowboy said yes, it was regular. And then he asked him, do you feel guilt? And Cowboy said, I feel regret. I should not have left his side. And then he got a little emotional. And then he said, no way in the world did I think this dude would come back and do this shit. And then that was the end of the direct examination by Jansen, or the redirect. And then the defense attorney had a couple of more questions about how many interviews did you get paid for. He said he got paid maybe for 2, but he did 3 sit-down interviews. Then they asked him about his new store that he has on Pico and Main, where he has a huge mural on the side of Nipsey Hussle. And that was pretty much the end of Cowboy's testimony, which went into day 2. He wrapped up at about 11 a.m. And then shortly after that, they went into witness number 2. Thanks for staying tapped in to the StreetTV channel and this Eric Holder trial update. Make sure you subscribe so you won't miss the next update, which I got dropping first thing tomorrow.